always went on Saturday afternoon to the Cowboy Matinee.
I remember coming here and watching Star Wars.
There were 5 of us girls, and we would load up with a parent, and they would bring us up here, and we would get popcorn and candy and sodas.
The very first movie that I saw here at the Rodgers Theater was The Lion King.
I remember the Rodgers of running around with my brothers and having my mom and dad and all the family together.
It was just a really magical time.
For nearly 70 years, the Rodgers Theater has been a focal point of downtown Poplar Bluff. Over the decades, thousands of people have passed through its doors. While the use of the theater has changed over time, the mission has remained the same, to provide a place where people can enjoy themselves and create memories. During the early part of the 20th century, movie houses drew millions of Americans into an era unprecedented in American culture. Poplar Bluff was no exception to this phenomenon. In 1914, there were 3 movie theaters downtown, and that same year, a man named Walter Rodgers bought these theaters along with a chain of theaters stretching from Arkansas to Illinois.
We had the Criterion Theater, which was on the southwest corner of Main and Pine Streets. The Jewel Theater was on Main Street where the Justice Center is now, the Butler County Justice Center, in that block. And then immediately south of the courthouse and across Vine Street from the courthouse was the Strand Theater. The Criterion and the Jewel were acceptable for my parents and other parents. The Strand was off limits to me and my sister, and it was off limits to a lot of my friends, most of my friends. There was a tavern next door, and Poplar Bluff was still a pretty lively town in those days. I recall that one Saturday afternoon, I was not present, of course, at the Strand, but a highly inebriated patron got mad at one of the bad guys in the cowboy movie and pulled his old pistol out and shot the screen full of holes. And that really happened. In '49, the Rodgers opened, and that was a new day.
The May 31, 1949 edition of the Daily American Republic was completely devoted to the opening of the Rodgers Theater. Every major business and industry in Poplar Bluff published a congratulatory message to the Rodgers family for what was without argument the finest movie theater between Memphis and St. Louis. For Walter Rodgers, the theater was his crowning achievement.
I believe in the future of Poplar Bluff. I always wanted Poplar Bluff to have one of the finest motion picture theaters in the land. When the Rodgers opens the 1st of June, my plans and ambitions will have been fully realized. The citizens of Poplar Bluff and vicinity have been good to me and my business, and by erecting this new theater, I believe I have in some small measure repaid them for their confidence in me and the type of entertainment I've given them since 1914.
In keeping with the most popular movie genre of the time, the first movie shown was a Western called Red Canyon.
The Rodgers opened on June the 1st, 1949. I was exactly 2 months shy of my 9th birthday. Red Canyon was the movie. I was certainly there, and all my friends and a lot of family members. The one thing, it was a big celebration. There was a band concert, I think, and other special events right before the opening. And Mayor Robinson bought the first ticket to the movie, I remember. It was a huge deal. The Rodgers seated more than 1,100 people. It was far larger than any of the other theaters. It was air-conditioned. It was really a unique place.
Part of the reason the Rodgers was such a unique place was because of its architectural style.
It is Art Modern style, which is a spin-off of Art Deco. Back in the mid-30s, they started streamlining things, taking decoration off. I don't know if it was because of the Depression era and fewer elements going on to things, but they stripped off a lot of the decoration and made it more streamlined. Had a sense of motion. It was things were developing mechanically with automobiles and different airplanes and things like that. They put a sense of motion to buildings, added rounded elements, had nautical features on them as well. The architect was a guy named Hugo Graff. Hugo K. Graff, and he was lifelong resident of St. Louis, worked there for a long time. I think he died in 1953, so this would have been one of his final buildings that he had done. That style was the first to use electric illumination kind of in the architecture itself, and you see that with the corrugated glass tower that we have out there that would glow. They lit it from the inside, and it would actually glow. It wasn't painted white. We have some metal on it now, just kind of covering up some pieces that have fallen off, but it would glow and stand out as kind of a beacon there. The panels around the back side of it, which are painted different colors, weren't originally different colors. They had lights at the bottom that would shine up on it, and the lights were colored. So people kind of remembered those as being different colors, and with the lights gone, painting them a color, I guess kind of brought back that same memory there.
As an integral part of downtown Poplar Bluff, it seems everyone has a special memory of the Rodgers Theater.
One thing I do remember is we always went on Saturday afternoon to the Cowboy Matinee. There was always a cowboy show, and always before it had been a nickel for children, and when the Rodgers opened it was a dime, so that was a big deal. Of course we had Roy Rodgers, Gene Autry, Lash LaRue, Whip Wilson, Sunset Carson, Hopalong Cassidy, who was William Boyd, but he went by Hopalong Cassidy, and many others that were favorites, and we saw those regularly. We always had cartoons. There was always an animated cartoon, and it would be Bugs Bunny or Woody Woodpecker or Tom and Jerry or Casper the Friendly Ghost, and some of those things were just getting started, later became much more famous even. And there was always a newsreel, world events, and a roundup of the important news of the day. That happened every single Saturday afternoon.
I remember the Rodgers of running around with my brothers and having my mom and dad and all the family together. And then as I grew up, taking my dates to the Rodgers for a movie or going hanging out with my buddies and watching a movie at the Rodgers. So it has a lot of fond memories of the Rodgers back when I was growing up.
One of my fondest memories of coming up, loading up a van full of my friends. There were 5 of us girls, and we would load up with a parent, and they would bring us up here, and we would get popcorn and candy and sodas, and it was just a really magical time. I did come here on one of my first dates. Actually, my parents came along too, which is a little embarrassing now, but back then that's what we did. I was a little bit younger. So we came and we watched Dumb and Dumber. And if anybody knows my father, Butch Frazier, Dumb and Dumber is not a movie that he would enjoy greatly, so he suffered through it for me. The atmosphere in this theater has always drawn me in. Just whenever you walk through those doors and you hear the doors slam and you smell the popcorn and you walk right into the theater, there's something that grabs a hold of me that really, there's no other place like it.
In 1964, the Rodgers family sold its theater chain to Carasotas Theaters, but the Rodgers saga continued. For nearly 50 years, the Rodgers continued to feature the best Hollywood had to offer. In the 1980s, in a nod to the growing popularity of multi-screen theaters, the balcony was closed off and a second movie screen was installed so that audiences could choose from 2 motion pictures. However, the days of the large movie houses were numbered. In 1998, Carasotas announced that the Rodgers would be closing in favor of a new 8-cinema complex. One of the last movies shown at the Rodgers was the blockbuster Titanic. But the Rodgers story was far from over.
When the screen was down for the movies, you didn't know what was behind it. And when the screen was gone and there was this big open stage here in front of us, it made perfect sense for live entertainment to come in here. And not all theaters had that. A lot of times there was a brick wall not too far behind the screen itself. So we were fortunate that it was designed in the way it is, to have all the space for a play or for a musical event or something like that.
The first group that benefited from the Rodgers was the Stage Company, a local community theater which has produced many well-known plays over the years. In 2008, a retired state trooper came up with another idea for the Rodgers.
Came to a stage play and I saw how great the acoustics are in this building, and I had wanted to put on a country music show, so I found out county actually owns a theater, and I went to the county court and I said I'd like to put on music show, and I'll donate all the money back to the Rodgers Theater. And they said, go ahead. So I did. February of '08, we had our first show, and of course the wall was still here. And we had 700 seats down here, and we filled them all up, and we were putting chairs down the aisle. And somebody said, you better quit doing that. You can't, if we had a fire, we'd be in real trouble. So it went over really, really well. We all had just local talent. It went over so well, we did it again. And the same thing, filled it up again. And then we just started having show after show after show and doing little opries with local talent. And then we started moving up a little bit with people like Mo Bandy, Narvel Felts, in later times, Gene Watson. The one that really got us going was Lily Tomlin. And when she came in, we did this in conjunction with the Claudia House. And she said we had to have 1,000 seating capacity place for her to entertain here. So we have 700 seats downstairs. We had 300 seats upstairs. And I got together with a bunch of people, and in 2 days we tore the wall down. We had boys from Sears Youth Center and myself and a few other volunteers, and we tore this wall down in 2 days. The county had guys here, they hauled all the debris away. Then we had a guy like Willard Allison who came in and donated the use of a crew for I think for a 2-week period. Donated all this labor, all the services. We had PAX and we had Gamlin Lumber Company that gave us all the material that we need to build the current, what we have for the sound booth back there. When I first started, we didn't have any sound equipment. So Greg Hayes, Hags Music, came over, loaned us a guy, loaned us all the equipment. He came over, set it up, and that's what we used on our first 2 shows. And after the first 2 shows were just wildly successful, Phil Childers steps up and says, I'm going to buy you guys a sound system. The current sound system that we're using, I think it was around $7,500, and Phil gave it to us.
With the money raised from the numerous shows and productions, the Rodgers Theater Board has made countless improvements to the theater over the years.
If you've ever been here, you realize it's kind of a drafty place here and can be cold or hot, either one. It's very temperamental at times. But we've put new doors in that allow for the drafts to be cut down greatly. So when you're backstage getting ready for a performance, or we have one of those big stars that come on stage, it's more comfortable. And again, it helps with efficiency of heating and cooling the building. We've also patched numerous times the roof in different places because there's leaks, as you can imagine, with a roof like this one all around the theater. We've renovated the drugstore, which used to be a drugstore. We've basically cleaned it all out, and we put new carpet and paint and just freshened it up. And then one of the biggest projects was the lobby with the concession area where Jackson hangs out a good chunk of the time. He likes that popcorn. The Commerce Bank here locally helped us out with a grant for that, and we remodeled that back to its original state, and it's just beautiful.
While there have been a number of improvements to the Rodgers, time has taken its toll. There simply has never been enough money to make badly needed repairs, and now this architectural and cultural icon is in need of your help.
Some of the major things that we need done, of course, the roof. We need to stop any kind of leaks that are in the roof because that causes damage on the inside, and further damage is really hurting the building itself. Structurally, it's still okay, but without too much time going by, we need to take care of the roof system, and that's all over. It's not just the theater here; it's over the offices on the sides as well, and the marquee, as we all know. Some of the flashier things, the marquee obviously needs to be fixed. It was hit by trucks, so we think in the 90s sometime, and it's damaged and doesn't look real good on the outside. The tower itself. We've replaced some of the glass panels that have fallen through windstorms and things and maybe weren't attached real well to begin with corrugated metal up there, and painted the whole thing white. So trying to kind of hide the damage as best we can. And then restrooms is another big element. We currently have 1,000 seats in the main theater, and we do not have enough for building code purposes fixtures for men and women. So we'd like to put together, we have a plan to do this, to have women's restroom on one side and men's restroom on another, and have enough fixtures to cover the number of seats that we have here. One other piece is the electric here. A lot of the Actually, all the wiring in here is original to the building, 1949 wiring. So there's a number of sub-panels around as well. So we need to kind of have a new main panel that comes into the building and new sub-panels and wiring in between as well, because that's important that we need to think about for fire hazard as well.
The Rodgers Theater is in desperate need of our help, and when I walk in those doors 20 years from now, and my son is here enjoying the theater in its full glory again, that right there brings it all home to me. I want our youth to really have those experiences that I had when I was a small child, and it's not going to be possible if we don't rally and bring it back to life. Until we fix that roof, we really can't do anything internal to the structure with some of the plaster and the walls and carpeting and all that, because we don't want to do that work and it to be ruined. So the roof is definitely number one on my list, but then it's that glorious marquee that's out front where the trucks have drove by for years and knocked the sides of it off. I think that would really be fabulous to bring that back to its full glory, that in the tower.
We'd like to see downtown turn around. I think we all would. But one of the main things and the key buildings down here is the Rodgers Theater. And to have as many active shows and productions, and if we can have movies shown here, something like that, old movies, whatever it is, the number of productions that we have here I think is important. It just brings more and more people to downtown. And that's where the history is. That's where this town was started, right here on the banks of the Black River with the poplar trees. And if we can have more and more people coming down here and experience the history of Poplar Bluff.
If this is something that we can do and renovate it and get it back to the original, what people remember long ago, it only builds the area here and hopefully encourages others to bring development and to renovate their area as well. There's nothing like a local historic theater, and to be able to bring back what it used to be, I think will draw more people to the downtown area, and to me, that's what matters.
I'm happy to see the committee activity sort of rejuvenated now, trying to raise local funds, and that has to happen, or without that, it's going to sit here and continue to deteriorate, and that would be a really sad thing.
Having an area that people can come to on a regular basis, such as the Rodgers Theater, is extremely important. And when I'm looking at talking to businesses to come to our area, it's really important. Everybody has the big box stores these days. The towns that really stand out are the ones that have unique downtowns and cultural centers like the Black River Coliseum, the Rodgers Theater. Having that downtown area or that landmark in the downtown area to draw people in kind of helps you stand out from other communities. I think the Rodgers Theater also brings an economic impact to our community. People come to the events here, and then either before or afterwards, they take their family out to eat, maybe they do some shopping. So I think that there's an economic development part of the whole Rodgers, and something that helps our area, whether it's through sales tax, which we all know goes to help with infrastructure and police protection and fire protection. So I think that part of the Rodgers is something that we wouldn't want people to forget about, because if people are coming to town for shows, then obviously they're going to be spending their money and bringing money from outside of the area into Poplar Bluff, which helps everyone.
We love the theater. We want it to remain strong for generations to come. Even though I wasn't born and raised in Poplar Bluff, my heart's in Poplar Bluff. I feel like I'm from Poplar Bluff because I've been so ingrained here since I was 15 years old. Jackson was born and raised here, as my other daughter, Kinsey, who is 4. We just want Poplar Bluff to continue to thrive, not only with the new and modern, but also hold on to those memories and that history piece so others can enjoy it.
Ever since its opening in 1949, the Rodgers Theater has been a focal point of downtown Poplar Bluff. During its days as a movie theater, it served as a gateway to the imagination for thousands of people, young and old alike, and it created memories that have lasted a lifetime. Since that time, the Rodgers has become a venue for the performing arts, giving local people an opportunity to display their talents and enhance the texture and diversity of our community. With your financial support, we can restore this grand and magnificent theater to its former glory and make it the centerpiece for revitalization in our city. We can preserve this historic icon and at the same time provide economic and cultural opportunities for our community and for those who follow us, so that the Rodgers Theater will continue to be a place where memories are made.